Hi, my name is Jacob. My life hadn't gone the way I had expected it to, or rather my future hadn't been what I'd hoped. When I was in college, my whole life revolved around school and work. If I wasn't on the computer writing some program, I was in class or tutoring. If I wasn't doing any of those things, I was helping out at the help desk of our school. Either way, I had no life outside of class and work. Mainly because I had told myself that I would focus on the fun parts of my life when I had a degree and a decent paying job. Right now, I needed to earn all of that. When school finally ended, I was in a panic to get a decent job because I knew, not soon after, Uncle Sam would come calling for me to pay back all of the student loans I'd taken out. Suffice to say that I wasn't being very picky, and I really used to apply for anything that paid a decent amount of money. I didn't even care if it was related to my computer science major. Just said it would pay the bills. I finally found a job with a small web development company that seemed to be the big dream I was hoping for. It paid great, my coworkers were excellent, my hours were flexible, and the work was fun enough. There was an itch in the back of my mind that I couldn't quite scratch though. Was this it? Was this the life I had given up my early 20s for? I got up in the morning and I worked out. I'd get dressed and I'd go to work. Then for 8 or more hours I would work on different code banks and polish up different websites before sloughing off back to my new apartment to eat, sleep, and do it all over again. I tried going out with friends, going to the bars and parties, taking walks, all the things you were supposed to do with a normal life, but none of it brought any excitement to me. I started taking inordinate risks when I was driving, caring less about how people perceived me when I talked with them, and ignoring my friends and family. You have to understand some things about me to really know what I was going through. For the better part of my life, I had been regarded as a pretty strange kid. I was interested in the more occult and obscure parts of life. I didn't really care much for rules. I liked stealing from others and breaking into houses with my youth, and lying like a second nature. As I entered my teenage years, I realized quickly that I couldn't get away with these things anymore if I wanted to get ahead, and I decided to change a lot about myself. In essence, I learned to wear a mask, and I got so good at it that I seemingly forgot I'd been wearing it for all these years. I'd even fooled myself. With the boredom and mediocrity of life after college settling in, my mask was starting to wear loose, and the creature from my youth was peeking out from behind it. I started frantically looking for things to satiate my growing need for thrill and excitement, and my numbness to social norms grew even more deafening. Working in computers, I had heard of and used Tor on many occasions, the browser used to access the deep web, but I had never been interested in anything that it provided. At most, it masked your identity and sacrificed speed, but at worst, it was where the dredge of society lurked, and for all my social ineptitude, I knew I wasn't like any of those people. On my way home from work one day, I was driving down the freeway as normal, but suddenly a guy cut me off and dodged in front of me, almost causing me to crash. I slammed on my brakes and turned my steering wheel as hard as I could, causing me to run off the side of the road into a ditch. My brakes and wheels no doubt took some heavy damage, but in general, my car was okay. The whole experience made my heart beat again like I was young. And instead of being mad, I remember I was almost excited by the thrill of it all. That's when it occurred to me that I may have a use for the deep web after all. Like I said, it was where you could find out the dregs of society, and while I sure I wasn't one, perhaps I needed someone who was willing to stoop to that level. When I got home, I downloaded Tor and started researching different anonymous forums where I might be able to score a little action. To the more experienced users of the dark web, I likely came off as a newbie going around poking his head into places that he knew nothing about. But I didn't care. All I really needed was for just one person to be interested in guiding me through the gates of this underworld. I posted a little thread here and there on any open forum I could find, looking for an adventure and something that would get my heart pumping like I'm alive again. I provided a recently set up email and waited to see if I got any replies. Many of my threads were taken down by moderators, and those that weren't found unsolicited spam, obvious virus links, or disgusting images sent to my email that I provided. After a few days of no success, I learned of a few chat rooms that I believe might be more helpful with my search. These would be live conversations, so I wouldn't have to wait for replies, and they would hopefully be more welcoming to someone who didn't know a lot about this kind of thing. After posting my normal, looking for an adventure, most of the rooms booted me, either as a newbie or believing that I was a cop. But in my very last one, I received a pop-up to talk with one of the chat members privately, which I was more than happy to do. There I was, at my desk, nothing lighting the room but my computer monitor. Sitting in the darkness, I chatted back and forth with the guy about my life and how I wanted something more interesting, risky, and fun. He said he'd met many people who'd stumbled onto this chat looking for the same thing and that he always liked helping them out. We talked for days about the different adventures he'd taken his past acquaintances on, but each of them always wanted to return to their normal adult lives after a bit, which left him to continue his search for that one buddy who wouldn't leave. In a whole, this sounded incredibly sad and stalkerish, which, believe it or not, didn't frighten me away, but left me more interested. I'm not naive or stupid, and I was talking with someone I'd met on a random dark web chat room. At the most harmless, it was some old fat guy sitting on the other end spinning me a web of lies. But at most, it really was someone dangerous, and I wanted to find out for myself. I wanted him to be dangerous because therein lies the thrill, which was my vendetta from the beginning of this little adventure into the dark web. I got up the courage to ask him if he'd ever want to actually meet and go on one of his little trips just to see what his reaction would be. And of course, he was more than happy. I learned that he was only about 7 hours away from me, so I suggested that we meet the next week and that I didn't want to know any of the details, just that I wanted to have a fun time for a few days. The days passed by quickly, and the night before I was planning on making the trip, packed up all the things that I might need. Clothes and travel stuff, but also a few self-defense items, a flashlight, and several burner phones. Loading it all in my truck, I started to get a rush then and there of what I was about to do. I was meeting up with a complete stranger in the middle of the night, putting myself in danger, and I had no idea what the morning hours were going to bring. As I drove down the dark highway road, my lights beaming in front of me, I felt as alive as ever. The dull drudgery of my job, the boring routine of my life, it all just slipped away. Night and the passing cars gave a kind of quiet and peace to my racing mind. When I got to the town of my new friend's address, I really started to feel the excitement wash over me. I had given him the number to one of my burner phones and he had texted me, "Are you almost here?" I didn't reply as I knew I was, and pulling over would just have taken more time. I winded up a road near the edge of town, but definitely removed from public and prying eyes until I saw his house in the distance. Pulling into the driveway, the reality of what I was doing started to hit me, and more than excited, I began to feel scared. My car lights shone strong against the large metallic garage door, and I had seen a shadow move across the bay windows of what looked to be a living room. I received another text. "Come on in, the doors are locked," it said. I took a deep gulp and opened my car door. The beeping startled me as I had forgotten to turn off the engine. Pulling the keys out, I put a few between my knuckles and stepped out of the seat onto the dirt, shutting the door behind me. My heart was racing and my breath getting more labored. Every instinct I had was telling me to turn around, and I looked back at my car, but I just kept moving forward. I heard every footstep I took in the dark night air, and I slowly reached out to turn the handle on the old door. Cracked pane, funneling down it, and a rusty handle. Inside the garage, a large white light hung from a cord in the center over two pickup trucks, muddled and rusted from head to toe. The place was very cluttered, and I had to step along a narrow path until I reached a screen door just above a few steps. I kind of whispered to myself, "You can just turn around and just go back." But my adventurous and apathetic nature took over, and I took a few steps up and through the screen door as it squealed shut. Inside, the house looked fairly normal, and I started to say, "Hello?" into the room. "Is anyone there?" I didn't hear anything. I said it a few more times, and I started to walk forward into the living room I'd mentioned before. "I'm downstairs, just fixing the water heater," I heard come from behind me. "There's a wrench on the table. Would you mind bringing it to me?" I sure as hell wasn't going to do that. I wanted an adventure, but I wasn't going to willingly walk into God knows what kind of trap in a completely locked off downstairs room. All those instincts that I could have been listening to from the get-go came brewing back to my attention as I immediately turned around to get the heck out of there. Running up to the door, I turned the handle, but it refused to open. I started panicking, and I turned it so hard that I broke off the door. Just then, I started to hear the creaking like something coming up the stairs, and my heart didn't race. It just stopped and calmed down. I turned around, and I remember the wrench sitting on the kitchen table. I picked the heavy thing up and prepared to fight my way out if I needed to. Those giant bay windows were another way out of this house. Quick like lightning, I ran past the door to the stairs where the voice and creaking came from and slammed the door shut as I did. I hopped onto the couch and bashed the windows with the wrench, climbing through the broken shards of glass. Climbing in my car as if there wasn't a tomorrow, I shoved the keys in the ignition and screeched out of the driveway, laying my foot onto the pedal as hard as I could. After hours of berating myself on the long trip home, the sun was starting to come up, and I felt some twinge of relief come over me. I was so tired from the whole night of events, and after slinking into my apartment and out of my clothes, I crawled into bed. I didn't forget any of this craziness that had ever happened. I closed my eyes and I drifted off to sleep. A few hours later, I woke up to the beeping on my computer, meaning I had a new message. I went over to the computer and saw that it was from my now former, never to actually meet, acquaintance. It read, "Why did you leave? We'd have had so much fun." I didn't reply. I just looked at the message and considered what my next move should have been at this point. Another message came to the screen which left me shaken and cold. "Your apartment looks so boring compared to what I had in store." My webcam wasn't on, so how on earth did he know what my apartment looked like? How the heck did he even know where I was? How did he... That was the last thing Jacob told me before meeting a rather unfortunate accident. My basement really was much nicer than his apartment, and I was so sad to see he couldn't have stayed for long. All my friends always seem to leave me. I guess I'll just have to find another. Tell me, have you ever thought of going on the dark web? I know somewhere you might like.